everybody, and welcome to the Give to Get session this Friday, September 24th, a life mastery session today. I really want to have an interesting conversation, or at least what I believe to be an interesting conversation with you people today. Again, we built the program on 4 pillars: life, business, investment, and community, wanting to help take each and every member on a journey of living what we call a limit-free, balanced life, where you have ultimate freedom in your life, emotionally, spiritually, physically, intellectually, and financially. That's why the 2 sides of the business, one being the subscription side on the personal development side, and the other being the, multi-level marketing side. Really from a point of view of bringing that together to take people on this amazing journey of being able to have that, what I'll say, freedom in their life that they want. In order to do that, people have to make good decisions. And that's what I really want to talk about today in this life mastery situation, and really for it to be, I'll say, a conversation around that. Life can be a beautiful adventure, or it can be a terrible tragedy. It really is up to, what I'll say, the choices that we make. And we can either, again, turn it into this beautiful adventure or a terrible tragedy. And in order to make a good decision, you really need 2 sides of it. You need what I call content, which is the information that you receive on any particular topic, subject, situation, along with the context, which is the actual situation around that. And again, if it's all right with you people, because I'm still going through the rehab on my knee, I'm going to stand up for a little bit here. We'll move it over there so we get the light out of the way. Thank you. And thank you for allowing me to stand up a little bit that way. So again, content and context, especially with what we're going through, I'll say, in this day and age. When I say this day and age literally being, I'll say, the last 5 or 6 weeks, really, from that point of view, where certainly in North America, there has been the whole, I'll say, explosion, division, I'll call it, divisional explosion around the vaccine. You know, on one side, you've got the people that are vaccinated. On the other side, you've got the people that aren't vaccinated. And there's a whole lot of, what I'll say, content being shared back and forth on social media, in the news, on different YouTube channels from that point of view. But I find there's very little, what I'll say, context to the situation. And you can't make a good decision if you have content, but not the context around it. And in order to get the context, you have to start to ask questions. You start to have to ask and discern through what's really going on. It's like a parent sitting there and saying, you know, one child coming to them and complaining about the other child, and the one child that's coming and complaining to the mom or dad is giving that parent a whole bunch of, what I'll say, content. They're not giving any context around it from that point of view. And that's a very dangerous situation for the parent to, what I'll say, receive that content from the one child as if it's what actually happened, and then take action based on that, I'll say, with regards to the other child, rather than going to the other child, getting some additional content from that other child, and start to find out some context from both in terms of what went on, what was the situation, what was the actual environment, what led to certain things, for certain decisions to be made, for things to be said from that point of view. And so it's very dangerous. And I find a lot of people, literally in the last, I'll say, 5 or 6 weeks particularly, but really in the last year and a half, and even in the last, I'll say, 3 or 4 years, where we've started to make decisions based on content only. And that's very dangerous. That's very dangerous for us as individuals. It's very dangerous for us as a society, because ultimately what it starts to do is it starts to divide us. And at the extreme, it starts to polarize us. And that's really where my concern is lately right now about the quote unquote vaccine situation. I'm going to sit back down because my knee feels pretty good. And that's always better when I sit down like that as well. So thank you. It's literally gotten to the point of polarization between the people who want to get vaccinated and the people who don't want to get vaccinated for whatever the reasons. And it's almost to the point where the reasons that people are getting vaccinated or the people that reasons aren't getting vaccinated from that point of view is really immaterial. And people aren't talking about that. They're talking about you should get vaccinated or you shouldn't get vaccinated. And that really becomes, I'll say, the divisive situation. And it's, again, all based on this content. I heard this, based on that, I'm going to say that. As opposed to peeling back what I'll say the onion, what I always like to say, peel back the onion and start to ask questions. Because again, the quality of our life, it can either be a beautiful adventure or it's a terrible tragedy. It really comes down to the quality of our decisions. And as I've said in a number of these sessions before in the past, I find as our society has gone on for the last 4 or 5 or 6 years, maybe even 10 years back, I'll say the quality of our decision making has dropped and the speed in which we are making a decision has increased. Partly because we're very busy being busy and we're not very busy being what I'll call purposeful or intentional to design the life that we want to design. And so you've got a lot of people running around making decisions based on content only, which again, as I said before, is dangerous. Even take from a situation where, Emma Lou, who's one of our coaches here on Give to Get, she's absolutely a phenomenal individual and a phenomenal coach. And she's had some great sessions for you people to watch on the Give to Get program as well, too. She talks about communication and she uses the analogy for communication that it's very much like, I'll say, a game of catch. And in order to play a game of catch, you not only have to, what I'll say, throw the ball, but the person has to catch the ball. And really, that's, I'll say, half of the communication. The other half is once the individual catches the ball, the individual then has to, what I'll say, throw the ball back, and you have to catch it. That's really what happens going back and forth between content and context.
On a scale of 1 to 5, would you give yourself a 5 on achieving what you want in life? If your answer is anything less than a 5, right now, I have something awesome for you. Achieving your goals and living your life at a 5 isn't easy. Most people aren't prepared to focus, stay disciplined, and do the everyday work that is necessary to achieve amazing results. But since you're watching this, then I'm guessing that you're not one of those people. And this is an opportunity that will change your life. Give to Get is a global program that brings together world-class coaching and combines it with empowering masterminds and networking opportunities. We provide 5-star guidance for the price of a cup of coffee a day. To find out more, click on the link in the description of this coaching session.
And where I was going with that is just an example. I've started to see people, particularly in the last, I'll say, year and a half, where if they text somebody and the individual doesn't get back to them literally in 5 minutes, they start to make up a whole story about what's going on the other side with this individual. They don't like me, they're upset at me, they don't think I'm important, they're ignoring me, they're delaying their answer on purpose to upset me. I mean, all of these different things come out because there's no context around it. Who knows what's going on the other individual side? And from that point of view, if you're really that concerned, reach out and find out and ask questions. Okay. Likewise, I'll give you a quick little example of what I really mean by this. There was I'll say, a well-documented legal case down in the South. This had to be about, I'll say, 7-8 years ago, where there was a black man on trial down in the South for, quote unquote, killing 2 individuals who, what I'll say, had allegedly sexually assaulted his daughter. And so it went to trial. And so I'll say prosecution, the defense lawyer had brought in a subject matter expert to talk about the situation and to provide quote unquote credible testimony. And so he got on the stand, provided that testimony, and you could literally see the jury going one way with what they were hearing from that point of view. Then the prosecution got up and basically, what I'll say, discredited the witness because found out that the individual back when he was, I'll say, a minor, or sorry, he was an adult, he was 18 years old. He had got arrested for having sex with a minor, which was illegal back in the South back in that day. And so all of a sudden now the jury swung the other way, going, this guy's not very credible because of not only being arrested, but the nature of the arrest being what I'll say a sexual charge in nature as well too. And then when the, I'll say, defense lawyer got to readdress again, what they ended up finding out was this individual that quote unquote he had sex with turned out to be his wife, where they were married for more than 45 years. It turns out that they had fallen in love when he was 18 years old, she was 16 years old. And while they were waiting, they were waiting for her to turn 18 to get married, because you couldn't get married back then. And all of a sudden it got found out, he got charged, and it looked like he had been arrested for this, which in actual fact, he was arrested. But when you put the whole context towards it, well, he fell in love and ended up marrying this woman, and they were together for more than 45 years. So that's the danger of really what I'll say, looking at situations with content only and not finding context, or not going and asking for the context. And again, as I'll say in the last little bit, I find not only our news platforms, not only our social media platforms, but now in general conversation, people want to give you a lot of content. They want to give you a lot of information, which in reality is really their opinion. It really is their opinion. And not to say that their opinion is right or wrong, good or bad or indifferent. It really doesn't matter. It's their opinion. And everybody is entitled to an opinion from that point of view. Before you take that information and go and run with it, you've got to find out some context, either by asking that individual and or asking other individuals and or doing more research. Because if you're going to make a decision based on the content that you just got from that particular situation, from that particular news feed, from that particular Facebook, from anybody like that, it could be dangerous. It could be dangerous. So you've got to start to find out what the context is around the situation. How do you do that? Well, you start to ask questions. You start to get the other side of the story, if you want to call it that, or you get to ask more opinions and discern through what's actually of an opinion, what's actually a fact. And even a fact, I like to say numbers don't lie, and liars don't like numbers. Having said that too, you can take a number and skew it any way you want in content. By understanding the context around the number, now you start to figure out what's really happening and what's really going on. It goes back to a fabulous book that I had read a number of years ago, that if anybody's interested in it, it's called Crucial Conversations. And it's how to have those crucial conversations and really discern through a conversation to peel the onion back, get to the root cause, or what I'll call the root situation, and ultimately make a good decision. I even find this with our Give to Get program right now that we've been doing for the last 3 months now, almost 3 months, it'll be 3 months at the end of next week, where the moment you start to talk to somebody about the program and you talk about the multi-level marketing side of the business, so many people have an opinion, i.e. content, that they literally shut down and stopped the conversation instead of finding out what's the context around the program, what's the intent of the program, what's the purpose of the program. Okay. And ultimately, the purpose on that side, the multi level marketing company, is to help people build a passive stream of income. Again, a lot of people don't understand what a passive stream of income is. A passive stream of income is a stream of income that's going to turn on and it's never going to turn off. No matter what you do, you could walk away from it and it's still going to keep providing you the income on, in this case, a daily basis, because we put the money into somebody's account on a daily basis. A lot of people don't understand that that's a passive stream of income because, again, they've got content, but they don't have context. Even in our give to get scenario, if you want to expand it out further, the way Morrow has built the program, and I'll say again, there's a genius to the program. There really is, because not only does it, what I'll say, turn on from a passive stream of income point of view, it never turns off. It never turns off, even if and when you as a member are going to pass away. So you have to start to think about, who do I want to will this to? How do I want to set this up in my estate? Do I want to set up a trust fund for my, what I'll say, future grandchildren's or my grandchildren's grandchildren, generational from that point of view? Or will it to the immediate children from that point of view? Because the way the system is built and understanding the context and the facts around it, it will never turn off. It will never stop. It will always keep going. It will always keep compounding. And so it's interesting, I find, that when you even start to have conversations with people about that, because they're looking at it from a content only, they've had a bad situation. I get that. People are burn victims. But because they've had a bad situation, they take the content and they make a decision not to even explore a possible good opportunity from a, what's the context? How might this situation be different? How might this situation might be an opportunity for me, might not be? To really discern through it and make a good decision for yourself. And I find that it is very dangerous in a society these days that a lot of people are, again, making these decisions based on content, not on context. They're not asking, they're not finding out. Depending on where you are as you're listening to this program, I'm in Calgary. We had our mayor come on last night, and our provincial government, if you're in the States, that would be your state government, came out and talked about how they highly encourage businesses to ask people for proof of double vaccination. But they're not coming out and, what I'll say, mandating it from that point of view. Yet they're putting a lot of pressure on businesses to go do that. And again, I'm not saying that's right. I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm not saying that's good. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm saying that's the information that's coming out. And because of that, in Calgary here, our mayor thought this is way too ambiguous for most people. So he was going to take the situation and make the decision that he's going to mandate a bylaw that certainly all restaurants and a lot of businesses from that point of view that are not deemed essential literally ask for vaccination proof from that point of view. What I found was really interesting that in his speech, as he did that, he went on to say, us people who have been double vaccinated have the right to be protected when we go out into society against the people who have not been vaccinated. Again, that's a lot of content. There's no real context there from that point of view. And it got a lot of people upset here because he literally is sitting there saying the people that are not vaccinated are causing the issues and causing all the problems with what's going on. Again, it's an opinion. It's not actual fact from that point of view. And if you want to find out the facts, you've got to start to ask questions around context. What I found was really interesting in that particular situation, he cited an example where if my wife and I wanted to go to a restaurant, let's say tonight for dinner, we would have to prove that we had, quote unquote, double vaccination or a double vaccination. And yet, if somebody was a worker let's even keep it in the family, that quote unquote, my daughter worked at the restaurant. Because she worked at that restaurant and wasn't going into that restaurant to eat, she wouldn't have had to have a vaccination, or would she have had to show what I'll say proof of double vaccination either. And so you've got a situation where one couple sitting having to show and prove vaccination if they want to go in to eat. The other person going to work doesn't have to show it. But then on the same token, with what's going on, at least here in Alberta, and I believe it's similar across a number of provinces and states in the US, excuse me, in the US, is a lot of the healthcare workers, if they're not choosing to get vaccinated, they're not allowed to show up on their job. They're not being fired. They're not allowed to show up on their job, which means they have to take the day as a sick day if they've got sick day banked. If they don't, well, then they're going to be, what I'll say, out of money from that perspective. And again, where I'm going with all of this is, what's the context around the whole situation? You know, and I'm not going to say one side's right, one side's wrong, or anything else like that. What I am going to say is, our society was built on democracy. Our society was built on freedom, and that's what a lot of people in our forefathers have fought for. So again, my content, which is only an opinion, is it's a personal choice, and whoever makes that personal choice either way is fine by me, and I've got to respect their choices, and likewise, I would expect them to respect my choices. And yet we don't even seem to get to the level of being able to have that conversation because of all the content and opinions that are flying back and forth. And we end up trying to justify the content as opposed to really figuring out the context. And going back to my original comment, it can be a beautiful adventure or it can be a terrible tragedy, depending on the quality of our decisions. The only way we can make a good quality decision is to add the context of the situation to the content of the information that we received. Otherwise, we're making decisions based on information, but we don't know how it is to be applied in a particular situation. One of my favorite expressions that I've said for a long time in my life is, a stick of dynamite is a wonderful tool in a quarry. A stick of dynamite in a quarry can do a lot of amazing things. It can blow up rocks. It can blow up the side of a mountain so that more rocks can get crushed. Those rocks can get crushed down into a number of different, what I'll say, sizes, shapes, to either be used as fill, to be used in asphalt, to be used as landscape stones, to be used in a whole lot of different ways. The same stick of dynamite in a bank is a very dangerous tool, because really somebody would be using it to blow up the bank or blow up the vault. It's still the stick of dynamite. That's the content. It's being used in very different situations. That's the context. And so where I'm going with this from a very high level as well, too, when we talk about, this being a life mastery session, and, one of the pillars that we build the business on is life, to help you live a more balanced life, emotionally, intellectually, physically, spiritually, and ultimately financially as well, too. If you're faced with this situation going forward, you want to start to ask yourself, okay, I've got the content because somebody gave it to me, because I read it, because I saw it online, because I watched the news, because a good friend of mine sent me, what I'll say, an article, sent me a text. Even that I find right now is just running rampant, where people are forwarding things all over the place without, again, the context going around it. Is you've got to stop and slow down. You've got to stop your decision making and slow down. You've got to stop reacting and start responding. You've got to start going, okay, that's interesting. That's some interesting information. I need to find out more context, more context around it. I apologize, not getting a lot of sleep this week. More context around it so that you can make a good decision. And in some cases, a life-changing decision, as opposed to just a quick response or a quick reaction that is only going to make the situation work or inflame what is already a heated conversation or a heated situation or a heated relationship that could literally push it into polarization. And what I mean by polarization, like a magnet, I'm going to put two together or opposed. When they're polarized, they will just actually separate from each other, and the long-term, I'll say, viability of that relationship and or conversation is probably not very healthy. And that's not what we're wanting here at Give to Get with any of our members. And so I just wanted to have that conversation today, that going forward, whenever you get content, you want to ask yourself, what's the context, and start to discern that. You've got somebody coming to you and saying, so-and-so did this, so-and-so did that. Great, that's content. What's the context? What was the situation around that caused them to say that? You might get a little bit from the same individual who's giving you the content. In most cases, you probably have to go and do some research, either asking other people or finding out what the situation was to truly peel back. And that's what a good, I'll say, business professional does. That's what a good medical doctor does. That's what a good lawyer does. That's what a good engineer does. I'll say the professionals from that point of view. That's what a good parent does, is they find out the content, but then they want to go find out the context so they can build both sides together. Okay. And that was really my conversation today, was just wanting to have a chat about that. And I caused some people to think, caused some people to slow down, caused some people to say, okay, I've got half of the situation now. Now I need to go find the other half. I've got the content. Now I need to go find the context. Or I've got some of the content. I need to go find more content, and I've got to put it into context. Okay. Always love our Friday sessions. They're always at 4:00 Eastern Standard Time, allowing people to kind of view them before they go out and have the weekend. For me, family is everything. So I'm going to sign off by saying, have a wonderful weekend with your family, and look forward to seeing you all next week. Take care. Bye-bye now.